Hi everyone, Alexa here from Duval Homestead, and today I'm going to share a chicken tutorial for backyard chicken keepers, what you need to know to get started, how much it costs, and just the general steps for starting your own chicken keeping. If you want to start chicken keeping, you'll probably want to think about things like, do you want fresh eggs every day? Do you have the space to keep chickens? Can you have them in your backyard? Is it a lot of work? How much does it cost to get started? What kind of predators do you have in the area? How are you going to keep your chickens safe? Things like that. If you're watching this video, you will have a lot more information than we had when we first started. So I hope that this helps you get started having sweet and funny chickens roaming your backyard. So my husband, John, and I have always bought cage-free, pasture-raised eggs and grass-fed beef, and really just trying to buy organic and the freshest, best food that we can, honestly, without really knowing what those labels meant, just trying to be as healthy as possible. We both grew up in the suburbs, and we moved from Seattle to a town outside of Seattle that got a farming community, and most people have more land, and there's some big farms nearby, and there's a lot more access to local food, and a lot of people actually have chickens in their backyards. We saw that so many people were chicken keeping that it kind of gave us an itch to start raising and keeping chickens, even though we didn't know how. So we got 3 chickens, and that's how many we are allowed to have in the lot size and the zone that we're in our community. So that's one of my tips. First tips for you is look up and find out which zone you're in and what chickens you're allowed to have. Some places you can't have a rooster, stuff like that. The story of how we got the chickens is really funny, actually. I found them in the parking lot of my office that's in a town that's nearby, and they were roaming the parking lot, which never happens in that area. It's not located in a forest, and they were really beautiful, and there were 3 of them all together, and I sent a picture to my husband, and he was like, just take them. And I thought, what? So I tried to find the owners via Facebook page and word of mouth, and couldn't find them, and we didn't want to leave them there to die, obviously, and they looked healthy, so we took them. I had to get someone to come help me get the chickens though, because I didn't know how to capture chickens, and I will tell you that it's not always easy. So we set up a coop in our backyard with a beautiful shaded area for when it's sunny and a covered area for when it rains, and now we have a nice setup. The important thing to remember about a coop is that the coop needs to be all weather and it needs to be predator proof. So you don't want anything to be flimsy. Animals will get in, especially if you live on property. So if there's anything to invest your money in, it's a good coop. Chickens are great meat for predators, and they really can't fight back very easily. So you need to protect them first and foremost. So we got our chicken coop plans off of Etsy. You can just search for chicken coop plans and you can buy them for really cheap, just the plans. You can buy chicken coops from the store. We wanted to do this because we heard that it would be sturdier if we made it ourselves, and we're really happy that we did. You have at least 3 square feet per bird. I think that with our birds, they're quite large, and I would want to give them more space than that. They're happier when they have more space, and when they're confined too close, they pick on each other, and they're just not happy. You don't want that because then you don't get eggs. So we built this coop for these 3 chickens, and if we had any more, I probably would want to build a bigger coop. So in general, you're going to want to make sure you have a nice waterproof slanted roof to prevent rain from accumulating. You want to make sure you have some kind of mesh or ventilation so that air can circulate in and out. And on the inside here, you want to have a roost bar. Now, funny story with this roost bar, this used to be about this height, but we found that our birds were not using it because they couldn't get up, probably because there wasn't enough launching pad for them to jump up and down. So we lowered it, and they really like it down here. You want to make sure you have good latches on your chicken coop. So this is a good latch. Closes in nice and tightly, so if something were to pull on here, it would have a really hard time getting in. On the flip side, we are just in the process of building a door to our run, which I'll talk about in a second, but let me show you a flimsy latch. So this door goes into our run, and it's got a latch, but it's a little bit more flimsy, and if something tried really hard, it probably could break this door. So we are working on making it a little sturdier. These are nesting boxes. So you don't need a nesting box for every single hen. For example, sometimes the lead hen in the group will designate what nesting box is the cool nesting box, and all the other hens want to lay in that one, and that's all that they care about, and they neglect all of the rest. So sometimes you might see people with 10 chickens and they all want one nesting box. But I would recommend having like a nesting box for around half, if not 2/3 of your flock, so that if they wanted their own, they could have it, but they may not necessarily use it. So we have 2 nesting boxes for 3 hens. And this is the outside of the nesting box. So this is a very heavy door. So again, if something wanted to get in, it would have to pull really hard here. And we have 2 fake eggs in here at the moment. This helps teach the chickens where to lay eggs and to remind them to keep laying in here so they don't lay in other places. And we have lots of straw and hay to make it really cozy. And I also put dried florals in here so it smells good and get some aromatherapy going. Another nice thing to note about this design is the insulation here. So in between, right here, in between the nest boxes, this is insulation to keep warm. Same with over here and over here. So we've got a lot of space for protection and warmth. We have a fenced-in backyard and we live in a neighborhood, so it's actually really ideal to raise chickens in because the chances of a predator getting in are a lot less than if we lived on a lot of property. But we still take a lot of care for the coop and protection, but it is nice knowing that we are surrounded by houses, so something would have to come and be very ambitious to come into our backyard. So depending on the age and breed of your hens, they'll either lay anywhere from once a day to a couple times a week. Lots of things can change the times that they lay. For example, right now they're molting, which means they lose their feathers and regrow them, so they aren't really laying now. Also, if there's a predator out or something scares them, that can interrupt the laying. But when they get a lot of sunlight and they eat a really good diet, then you can get... They also lay the most when they're young, but that doesn't mean that an older hen should not be kept just because she's not laying. Hens actually bring a lot of benefit. One being older hens can help protect and teach the younger hens how to do things. Additionally, hens create manure, so their poop can go right into the grass and can go right into the dirt, and it's really good for your yard. They also take care of bugs in your yard, so they're a really great asset to have. We just personally love our animals as well, so I don't think we could ever get rid of one just because she wasn't laying. We were kind of attached to them, but they do provide benefit for you even if they're not laying eggs. So you'll also want a run with your chicken coop, and I was confused about this when I first started. We were like, why do we need a run? Isn't that what the backyard is for? What is this run for? And really it's another place for them to be safe and shielded from the sun or rain, for them to have food and water, and for it to be a protected area. If you didn't have a run, especially living in the Pacific Northwest, we get a lot of rain. So if we didn't have this run, they would be out and about and muddy, and then they would go into the coop and they'd take all the water and mud in with them, and it would be quite dirty. We'd have to clean it a lot more often. So you can kind of think of this run as a laundry room. It's a nice place for the dirt to come off before you get in the house to keep the house clean. A run is also good if you're going to be leaving for work and you don't have a fenced-in backyard and you don't want your chickens roaming the property because it can be really dangerous. So you would want a bigger run in that case. This run, I think, is a little bit small. We would like it to be bigger, but for our purposes, our chickens actually free roam all day. They're in the backyard the whole day. So they don't use the run often, but if we need to leave and we can't be here with them, then they at least have this area to play and to be covered from the rain and to have food and water and be safe. A lot of people say, aren't chickens really messy? And do you really want poop all over your yard? And I would say, yeah, they are messy, and yes, there is poop all over the yard, but it's not like dog poop in the way that it smells really bad and you have to clean it up immediately. Their poop just dissolves into the ground. It's really good fertilizer, and it really doesn't smell that bad. And for us, we like to keep the yard clean too. So we just take the hose and we hose the poop on the grass until it dissolves, and then it's just gone. And we also hose it off the deck and everything. That way we can still walk around, we can have guests over, and we don't feel like the backyard is a place that we don't want to be. So this chicken coop was actually one of the first projects, major house projects that John and I did when we first moved into our house. So the cost of this coop was seemingly high, partly because we had to buy tools to make it. So the plans for the coop were, I think, $10 to $15 on Etsy, so they were really cheap. The wood and metal and tools, all of the parts to make the coop totaled about $1,000, and it took a few weekends to do. It was a lot of fun though, and I will say that this is a very, very sturdy and nice coop, and we're very happy that we spent the money because now we don't have to rebuild it. It should last a very long time. Chickens are actually not that expensive. You can get a chick or a laying hen for anywhere from $5 to $20 I've seen. We got ours for free. So chickens are not the expensive part. The expensive part is building a nice coop to prevent predators, and then you just have to buy feed, and then you also need some standard veterinary equipment for if your chickens get sick, and you should know how to do some basic things. Okay, so I know this looks chaotic, but it's really not. I just wanted to show you for purposes of telling you that you're gonna wanna dedicate some space in your house to have all of the chicken supplies. So what we do is our door is right here that goes to the backyard, and you're gonna wanna invest in some nice outdoor clogs or rain boots because you're gonna be going outside a lot, at least I do. So you're gonna want a few really important things. You're gonna want some poultry dust and diatomaceous earth. You can look these things up, but essentially what they are is special dust for your chickens so that they can take dust baths. You want them to do this so they don't have mice or lights, and they can bathe their feathers properly. And there are some things for the coop that you'll want, such as some nice hay, and I also have some dried flowers that I use in the nest and the coop. Like I said, it just smells good. You don't have to have that, I just like it. And then you're gonna want oyster shells and grit. Again, you can look more into this, but essentially what they are for the digestion of the chicken. They eat the grit or pebbles if they're free roaming to help food go through their crop. The oyster shells are little white pebbles, and those actually are help the chickens in the production of eggshells. So you may want to make sure that you get these things, because if you don't, your chickens may not be laying eggs. I also have scratch handy, and I have mealworms, and I have a tub of grubblies, and these are all different sources of protein and grain that the chickens like as treats. We usually try to feed our chickens healthy treats. You can also feed them leftover food from your dinner plate for just about anything. There's only a few things that chickens can't eat, such as I think avocado. So you want to look that up and make sure you know what you're giving your chickens. Remember that what they eat is then what you eat in their eggs. So we kind of spoil them with what we give them. I give them fermented feed, I give them cultured yogurt, a lot of really healthy food, because that's what we want in the eggs. And I will tell you that the eggs that you'll get if you feed them really well are big, golden, dark orange yolks, and the egg whites are really thick. And then when you get used to that and then you have an egg from the store, it's like night and day. You'll also want to make sure you have a hat to go outside in the rain. I have a nice farm outfit going on right now. This is from Southern Farm Co. And it's just a good sweat kind of farm outfit, especially if it's cold outside, which it is today. And then you'll want some gloves, some basic wound and skin care. Occasionally your chickens might peck each other, or they might have I have a hen that picks her feather on her foot sometimes and it will bleed. So this just helps keep things clean. An added tip, if you have a cat, keep the feathers from when they molt or when they just shed their feathers, and I put them in a jar and give them to our cat and she goes crazy. And of course you want a nice layer feed. So this is just the food that they eat regularly, and it usually comes in a dry form like a pellet or a mashed crumble. And you can buy organic or non-organic. Again, it's just a matter of what you want to be eating in your egg. I don't think I could give a blanket cost for how much layer feed is. I think it will depend on your area and what kind of feed you buy and how many chickens you have. So we only have 3, which means we don't go through feed as fast as someone with 10 or 20 or more chickens would go through. I will tell you though, one hack for getting more bang with your buck with layer feed is to ferment it or soak it. The fermenting and soaking process expands the grain that is in the feed, and it allows your chickens to eat less of it because they're getting more nutrients from the same thing. So that's something that we do, and that helps us save money. Our feed is about, I want to say we spend $30 or so on a large bag. We go through it maybe once a month. Maybe it'll last us more depending on what else we're feeding them. And then we buy scratch and mealworms and grubblies, and that stuff costs anywhere from $10 to $30 depending on how much of it you're buying. Usually if you buy in bulk, you're gonna save more money. And we don't go through it that fast, honestly, because we've only got 3, so we're only sprinkling a little bit at a time. We're not feeding it, in the plateful. So I don't know, maybe $50 a month would be an average for us that we spend on the food. I will say the upfront cost is definitely the highest because we had to buy a whole bag of feed, a whole bag of scratch, a whole bag of mealworms, a whole bag of grubblies, a whole bag. So there were a few $100s spent on the upfront cost of buying that, and then we didn't spend anything for a while after. And again, don't forget that you can give them leftover food. So we reuse our kale, so we eat kale every night for dinner, and the leaves that we don't eat in the salad we give to the chickens, and they love it. So there's a lot of food that you can give to your chickens that would be healthy treats as well. So in summary, I wouldn't say that chickens are very expensive. I would say the hardest part about owning chickens is simply the upfront, building your coop, getting everything set up, and being prepared for when something does go wrong. We did not know about nail clippings. We started clipping the nails of one of our hens, and we actually ended up thinking that we didn't need to be clipping them at all, but we clipped one nail and cut it too close and it bled. We ended up getting this septic powder, and of course I didn't have this at the time, so I just used a paper towel, and it was stressful, but you kind of have to live and learn. You should get a few basics such as antibacterial spray. You're gonna want your, the things I talked about earlier, but of course, you don't want anything to go wrong. You would take your chicken to a vet if you had to, and chickens are sensitive animals, and they are part of, life's cycle and nature's cycle, so you do lose them. It does happen, but the joy of having them every day is something that is really special. When they lay eggs for you, it is so special, and you go out there and you give them treats, and you just know that they're so hungry because they work so hard to lay those eggs, and they are incredible whether you're baking with the eggs or eating them fried or scrambled. It's the best. I had someone tell me one time that chickens are, if she's ever in a bad mood, she just goes out and watches her chickens. And I totally understand that. It's like they're so sweet, and they're funny, and they're just very innocent animals, and you can get so much joy from them if you just enjoy them in their truest form. I hope you enjoyed this video on chicken keeping for beginners and starting your own chicken coop from scratch and learning how to raise chickens. Of course, I didn't cover all of the details in this video, but I hope that this video is a nice introduction, and I hope that it maybe encourages you to go ahead and get chickens. Whether you have an apartment with a little bit of a yard, or you've got a whole bunch of property, you can absolutely make chickens work for you, and I hope that you can experience the joy that they bring us. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and also like my Facebook page. Every week I post farm-to-table recipes right here from our home and homesteading ideas from our homestead. And of course, feel free to share this video with someone you think is interested in chicken keeping and might benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for sharing in our homestead.